I'm in my grace era.
I'm definitely
in my grace era.
I give myself grace by not harping on my mistakes or missteps.
Wonderful grace opportunities.
Trying to show myself more grace by seeing just how far I've come.
in my grace era.
The grace that I needed was the grace that I would give to myself.
So think of giving yourself grace. Think of grace as growth.
I am living in my grace era.
I'm definitely in my grace era.
I'm in my grace era.
In my grace era. It's the season finale, y'all, and we are having a grace party. Get your girlfriends, grab your coffee, get your tea, whatever you need, and let's talk about the rhythms of grace. Let's get into it. Hey, y'all, hey, I'm back. Back. Look, I am excited. I'm excited to be here because, first of all, I feel like it's been a while. It always feels like it's been forever and like 6 days before I make it back to see y'all. How are you doing? What is going on in your world? How is life treating you? How are you treating yourself? How are you treating life? Shoot, sometimes we don't have to take what life gives us. Sometimes we be like, look at here, life. This is what we're going to do. And this is what we're not going to do. Okay? And we just tell life what's going to happen and what's not going to happen. And that's just how it is sometimes. It's like that sometimes. But I'm excited about today's content. I'm so excited about it because I think it's going to bless you. I think it's going to help you. And I want this for you so much. Like, I want this for you. I want this for myself. So listen here though. I'm gonna go ahead and just keep it real. We're just gonna go ahead and like talk about what we got to talk about first, okay? Because this is the last episode of season 1. Can you believe it? It's been a good run. We've had a fantastic season. And although this is season 1, I will be back with season 2. And I've got a plan. It's going to be phenomenal. You're going to love it. And I can't wait to share it with you. But I'm going out. We finishing strong. So don't you worry, because this episode is our grand finale. And it is going to be power packed with surprises. Okay, so I'm so excited about this episode because I'm so excited. Okay, first of all, you know I love a good surprise. But not only do I love a good surprise, I love a good co-host, okay? So not only do I have 1, 2, maybe 3 co-hosts, I have like a lot of co-hosts today, right? Because I have called on the sisterhood and the sisterhood came through. So what you're going to see throughout this entire episode is what I'm calling grace moments. I got it from my sister. I got it from my sister. I'm going to call it grace moments. So when we pause and you'll hear me say, all right, it's time for another grace moment. It means that's time for us to hear from our sister and for her to share with us how she gives herself grace. Let's grow together. Here's our first grace moment. I've got one from a beautiful sister that sent hers in, and I told her I would read it. She said, a moment when I had to give myself grace. Or should I say, when I realized I deserved more grace from myself. Last week, I went to a parent-teacher conference, and I got the talk that no parent wanted. My child isn't doing well in school, to the point they said he may need an IEP, individualized education program. I was crushed when I got home. My chest felt heavy. My first thought was, I have been so busy with life that I failed my child. I wasn't helping him enough. After thinking and talking to my best friend, I realized I have always told my kids that it is okay to be different. I realized that I'm not a bad mom. There's nothing wrong with my son. He just needs extra help for him to learn, and there's nothing wrong with that. I love that I need to give myself grace as a mother. My kids are not perfect, and that's okay. I'm not going to be a perfect mom. Now, when I'm parenting, man, my kids and I come across a problem, I can say to myself that I'm in my grace era and that it will be okay. Yes, sis, yes, you are in your grace era and it will be okay. I absolutely love that because we can be so hard on ourselves, the hardest on ourselves when it comes to our kids. So I love that. Thank you so much, sis, for sharing your story. for sharing your heart. And you know what? I love that you said that. There's nothing wrong with your son. That everybody is different. People learn differently, and embracing that is absolutely okay. And perfection is not the goal. So, son, however you can get it, boo. Whatever you need, get it. So, even you are teaching your son to have grace for himself, right? And use your resources. They're there for a reason. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. And we've got another sister that sent in her grace moment. And she says, I have learned to give myself grace by practicing self compassion and reframing negative thoughts. Reframing them negative thoughts, that'll get you through. That'll get you through. That's powerful. I love that. And self compassion, we all need it. We're in our grace era, ladies, and it's time for us to learn how to love ourselves, to give grace to ourselves, to let us know that we are okay. Okay, let's get back to this podcast because I got things to say and I got things I need to know. Let's get into this check-in. The novel I'm reading is about a queen and it's about her journey to queendom. But she started as a slave. And let me tell you something, it is rough. But it is our reality, And being able to take that journey with her and be in that space with her is humbling, it's enlightening, and it is really putting me in a place of gratitude. I don't even think that's the word, y'all. I ain't even gonna lie. It's put me in a place of, y'all, I don't know how. It's put me in my feelings, if I'm being honest. It's put me in my feelings, but it's really making me rethink. And I think it's reshaping, how I value things and how I value the sacrifices that people made. I always value, I know the stories, but this is kind of like me just being like, when you're reading a book, it's like you in it. Like these authors are amazing because it's like you right there in it with them. And that book is bringing it to life, y'all. It's bringing it to life. And it is really opening up my mind. It's opening up my heart. And it's like, stop taking this stuff for granted. You know what I mean? I think that's what I'm trying to say. Like, value what you have because there was some real sacrifices made, and be grateful for those that went before you and paved the way for you, and honor those legacies and and their lives, and their memories and their sacrifices, man. So yeah, that book is heavy, but as I walk through it, it's almost like I know kind of that she's gonna be a queen at the end. I don't know how she gets there, but I'm just at her starting point now. So I'm excited to walk this journey with her and see what the end's gonna be. So I'll put the name of the book in the comments because I don't have it with me right now, but it is fantastic, phenomenal book. So that's what I'm reading. And I'm gonna tell you one thing. How am I doing? Listen, I'm in a season where I'm learning a lot. I'm in a season where it's like, look, if somebody else already got it figured out, just let me, just tell me what you do, how to do it. How did you do it? Let me know. Like, if you've already got it figured out, I'm willing to just learn from you. I'm not trying to reinvent no wheels. I'm just trying to get the knowledge that you have, apply it, and make it work. So yes, I am like that. And also I'm in my grace era. I'm in my grace era. And I want you to come with me on that journey. Like, I want this for you. That's what this episode is about today. We are in our grace era. We are finishing in our grace era. Like, this is what we're doing. We're giving ourselves grace. We're learning what grace is all about. We're learning, what it means. Listen, I even got a definition for you, okay? I have a definition, and we are calling grace the act of being kind, compassionate, and forgiving to oneself, especially in moments of imperfection. The act of being kind, compassionate, and forgiving to oneself, especially in times of imperfection. kind, compassionate, and forgiving. Have you been kind to yourself lately? How's your compassion? And I'm not talking about anybody else because we're good at doing this for other people. I'm talking about yourself. We're talking about the inner you. How are you doing on forgiving yourself? How are you doing with that? Kindness, compassion, forgiveness. Those are three strong words, especially when I ask you to look in the mirror and say, Gwen, I forgive you. You used what you had. You used what you knew. And now that you know better, you can do better. That's literally grace. Kindness. Like, Gwen, girl, you are being hard on yourself today. You did the best you could. And what you did was enough. That reinforcement, that re-empowerment and compassion. Gwen, girl, I know you tired. You have had a long day. Listen, I know you tired. Or, this is hard. This is so hard. And you know what? I'm going to give you what you need. Whether that be rest, whether that be time, whether that be a friend, whether it be your doggy. Listen, my emotional support animal is my doggy. He's sleeping. He is bundled up and sleep. I'm gonna try to show him to you, but he is bundled up and sleeping. So I'm gonna wake him up later. I'm sure he'll wake up before the end of the show. But what is it that you need? Do you just need a change of scenery? A movie? Sometimes I just need to veg out. Not be in my reality. Let me just live in yours for a minute. A good old movie. Power in the movie. Kindness. Compassion for yourself. Compassion. Understanding that you're human too. You get to grieve. You get to be sad. You can be tired. You can rest. We had Self-Love Friday. If you don't follow me on social media, you need to get plugged in because we are doing a whole thing out here on the socials, and it is fantastic. We are loving on ourselves, and we're really working on this grace thing. I think you got the hang of this by now. It's grace moment time. All right, sis, give us what you got.
So when I think of giving myself grace, that is a very hard thing for me to do. I am a full-time mom. I'm a full-time teacher. I'm a full-time wife. I'm a wife of a pastor. And I have been an all or nothing type of person. And there are times when I feel as though I'm drowning. I know mentally, I know logically that I cannot do it all. However, I still try. But I'm realizing the older that I get that I have to give myself some grace. So I've started doing something in moments where I feel as though I am super stressed, super anxious, super worried about everything that's going on in our lives. And I repeat inside my head, control what you can control. I can only control what I can control. And that has given myself time and a moment of just exhaling in moments where I feel as though I'm getting ready to implode. So in my grace era, I say to myself, it's okay. Control what you can control. I'm in my grace era.
Ah, it's just so good. It's just good stuff. Yes. Yes, 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 yes. So, as we enter into our grace era, I really am trying to convince you of why grace matters. Why in the world does grace matter? Because when we talk about grace, it's almost like grace can seem unattainable, right? grace can seem unreachable. It can seem like something that we can't do because it doesn't come naturally for all of us. Like it didn't come naturally for me. Like grace for me was a learned behavior. I mean, I come from a bit of a critical home. And so it was kind of like perfection was required, and it was important that things were done right and things were done right the first time. So I spend a lot of time on not trying to make a mistake, right? And when I make a mistake, it's like, I messed up again and there are going to be consequences. That's kind of my mindset because I kind of grew up in a bit of a pressure cooker. So when it comes to life, sometimes I have to let little Gwen know that you're safe. You're not going to get in trouble. Like it's okay to make a mistake. It's insane how as an adult, we have what we call in our adult ego states, but we also have a child ego state. There's an inner child that really does still, wonder and have fears, and that stuff is real. And so I can be, in my child ego state and make a mistake and be like, oh, bracing myself for what's the trouble, what is the consequence, what's going to happen. And I do find myself often like, I just don't want to get in trouble. But it's like, girl, you are grown. Like you are so grown. You are so grown. So I have to like tell little Gwen, like, hey, adult Gwen's here and it's okay. Like you're not going to be punished for making a mistake. And I love you. I love your mistake. Like, what can we learn from this? The way that I be talking to myself, y'all, it's so real. And I am not even ashamed to tell you that because the conversations that I have with little Gwen, they're necessary. And I wonder what conversations you need to have with your younger self. What does your inner child need? I am telling y'all, stop avoiding your inner child. I was on a panel, and one of the questions was, how do you reconnect with your emotions? And my answer was, connect with your inner child. Usually, whatever you need emotionally, she has it. If you get to know her, you'll get to know what your needs are. But oftentimes, we don't want to get to know her because that's where, when the pain happened at her age, she still exists because that's where we stopped growing emotionally. That's where the trauma happened. And that's when we started guarding ourselves and coping and carrying, and our growth emotionally was stunted. So many of us emotionally are 5 or 8 or 10 or 12 or 15. And we long for love, or we long to belong, or we long to be seen, or we long to feel heard, or we want to be connected, or we just want to be held, or we want to be understood. So we don't know how to give ourselves grace because we haven't seen it done before. Mama didn't necessarily give her self grace either. Many of us, and I'll speak for myself, but many of us, we don't know what Mama did. We don't know what Mama needed. Because in some cases, in my case, Mama grieved alone. Mama was so strong that all I saw was strength. I never saw anything other than strength. So all I knew was being strong. There was no other options. Superwoman was it for me because that's all I saw. And my mother was a phenomenal woman. I mean, she was and still is my shero all day, every day. But all I'm saying is, Mommy, I wish I could have seen your vulnerable side. I wish I knew what was in your heart. You know what I mean? Like, I wish I would have taken the time, or that, we had the space, or that you had the time. Writing a letter to my mama right here, just for y'all, to give me that emotional honesty. Because, Mommy, you were out here working and raising us, and a lot of it you did on your own while Daddy was working. And you had these kids, 3 kids, and trying to make ends meet and trying to give yourself what you needed. And oftentimes you went into your own space and handled that. You found things that made you happy, and you did that in your own space, and you made sure we were straight, and then you went into your space, and that's where you refueled, and that's how you handled life. But man, if I had the opportunity to just kind of be in your heart and know kind of how you felt. And I know you didn't want me to worry about you. You didn't want me to worry about you. But so you covered that part from me because you didn't want to put that on me. And in some ways, I appreciate that too. But I tell you, if I could have just known your heart, if I just could have held your heart in my hands for a while, man, how beautiful would that have been? How more well-rounded would I have been? How more, how differently would I have seen your strength? Because I tell you, you were one tough cookie. But I know you were tough in more ways than just physical strength. I know you were emotionally tough. I know that you were mentally tough. And I know that you had to deal with some hard stuff. So, that's grace. That's grace, y'all. And that might have been an awkward moment, as I just had that whole conversation with my mom. But at the same time, that's what's in my heart. That's how I show grace for her. And in having grace for her, that's the beauty of grace. And having grace for her, as I just walked you through that, and I'm able to see, like, man, you were dealing with some hard stuff too. Like, you did the best you could with what you had. That allows me to, in turn, have grace for myself. Because you know what? Just like her, there's oftentimes I don't get it right, but I'm doing the best I can. I'm working with what I have. And now I can learn from her and know that there's times where I need to be, more emotionally honest, and I need to be more well-rounded, and I need to show something other than strength. And if I'm afraid, maybe I'll let somebody know that I'm afraid, somebody that's safe. Or if I'm lonely, or if I'm tired, or if I'm hurting, or if I'm wounded. That's kind of what grace looks like. Being strong enough to let other people know what you need. And letting yourself know that you're not weak for having those needs. That's grace. Like, if we were to give ourselves grace, if grace was our default setting, how much differently would the world be? How much more? Like, what would the world look like? How much more compassion would be in this world? How much more love would be in this world? If we saw people and life through the lens of grace, man, as we have grace for ourselves, and we know we need it, right? But we don't give it to ourselves, so it's hard for us to give it to others. But as we begin to give it to ourselves, then we can kind of begin, our lens will change. So when we look at another, we'll say, man, how can I have compassion for you? Because you must be going through. Even if I got to set a boundary, even if I got to keep you at arm's length, even if I don't understand what you're doing, I can still have compassion for you. I can still offer grace while I set my boundaries. Definitely want to be clear on that. While I, have my expectations properly set. But this grace thing is powerful. And this grace thing is a game changer. Not only for you, but for others. You ready for another grace moment? I know I am. Let's go. Take it away, sis.
As a person who can be my own worst critic, showing myself grace has not been the most easy thing. However, I am trying to show myself more grace by seeing just how far I've come. Choosing to look at the progress I have made rather than the mistakes I've made or even the end goal, which sometimes can feel far off if we're not grounded in grace.
When I heard the song, All I Need is a Little More Grace, my first thought was that I needed a little more grace from God. But then the scripture says that God's grace is already sufficient. So now I've come to realize that the little more grace that I needed was the grace that I would give to myself. So I'm learning to say no to situations, no to some people, no to some issues, and not feel guilty about it. God's grace is sufficient to give me the strength that I need to apply compassion and a little more grace to myself.
Okay, ladies, we're back at it, and it's story time. Story time with Gwen. Listen, I had a moment. Okay, my baby is out in college and she is thriving. Okay, she is thriving. She is taking UNCG by storm, and I am so proud of her. But there's a time we're getting into a space now where her workload's picking up, and you know she's got this community that's fantastic, and is what I prayed for, by the way. I prayed that she get to college and find her people. And man, she has been blessed. My prayers have been answered. But I haven't been talking to her as much. And that thing was kind of painful. And I was just like, well, okay. You know, I'm like, just like that. Just like that. And I had to sit with that thing for a second. First of all, realize that, Gwen, what do you need? Grace and compassion for myself, right? Like, you just miss your baby. This is new, and you're grieving the loss of that relationship as you know it. And that's okay. Like, that's okay. Because you can grieve and still believe. You can grieve and still be excited for her, right? I can grieve. Like, I can miss us having that constant connection, but also, but also, and be excited for her and this new life that she's leading. And the fact that the goal was always for her to be independent. So as she blossoms, as she blooms, as she learns that she can live life without being constantly surrounded and connected to us, that's the beautiful thing. That don't mean it don't hurt though, as we transition and as she differentiates and learns that she can do a lot of things by herself. That don't mean that the transition's not difficult, right? So as I was doing that, I kind of got in my feelings, and then I was like, wait, first of all, let me have compassion for me, be kind for me. I just walked you through how I was kind and compassionate to myself. Like, I acknowledge my pain. I acknowledge that this is difficult, but I also acknowledge that I'm so happy for her and that this is what I prayed for and that my prayers are being answered and that this is a good thing. But I still got to let my heart catch up with the fact that she is growing up and things are changing, and that as she becomes more independent and as she learns to trust herself, that means that she relies and needs me less. And that, for a mama, that's a loss for a mama, and that's all right. That's something that I have to walk through. And that's something that I get to walk through. Like, it's a change for me. And grief, by definition, is the end of or change in any normal pattern of behavior. So I get to give myself grace. I get to honor my feelings. But I also get to be excited for her, right? So we can live. We can do both and. We can have a both and mindset. Grace. Be aware of that. It doesn't have to be this or that. Like, oh, she's not calling me as often, so she don't love me, or she don't care for me as much, or our relationship is over because it's different. That's that. Or it's got to be this or that. No, it can be this and that. It can be she's growing and she's changing, and I'm excited for her because she's trusting herself finally, and she's got her confidence now, and she's learning that she can stand on her own 2 feet. But as she does that, that means that I'm going to hear from her a little less. And I just really enjoy talking to her every day. So you see how that works? Do you see how that works? That's grace. So now I get to learn, right? As she transitions, then I transition in my space. Like, as I grieve, I'm also like, okay, well, I can also miss her, but I can also believe that I'll be okay in this new space without her, right? because this is a new opportunity for me as well. As she finds out who she is, I get to learn who I am more independent of her as well. Because we've been very heavily connected. So it's not a bad thing. I'm telling you, this grace thing is powerful. But I also looked at her and I was like, wait, before I villainize you, you ain't calling your mama da 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 da, blah, 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 because hurt people can hurt other people, right? So before I go doing all that and projecting and vomiting on her, it's always like, wait, gosh, it must be hard for her to balance. She is 100% of the time surrounded by people. That communal living is something else. And I remember college. College was one of the best, 4 of the best years of my life. I just saw my college roommate, y'all. She came to see me and spent time with me. And let me tell you something. That was so refreshing and it blessed my soul. Because it's been almost 20 years and we are still connected. We graduated in 2005. So, I mean, I love her life. And when she's in town, she comes finds me and we connect and we just pick up like old times and we've kept up with our kids. So I just love that. I'm so excited. My bud, my college roommate, is actually here. And she came to tell us about how she gives herself grace. Thanks, bud. Teach us, girl. Teach the people, sis.
Hi, my name is Jarrell Dodson. I give myself grace by not harping on my mistakes or missteps, but instead focusing on the lessons learned and how I can move forward in a positive direction.
Okay, back to my story. Y'all remember where we left off, right? Me, my daughter, college, relationships changing, me and my feelings, college being wonderful, me learning to give her grace. Okay, picking up there. But college is fantastic. But seasons change, relationships change, and we got to be ready to, kind of go with the ebbs and flows, but also, again, have that compassion and that kindness and sometimes that forgiveness. But yeah, for my daughter, I had to be like, what is this like for her? She's taking all these credits. She's got all this work. And she's got all these friends that are always around her now. Like, thank God for the village, but the community is always there. Like, the village is strong, but they ever present. They are ever present. So it's kind of like, I bet that's difficult for her to manage and balance as well. So I shouldn't add any, like, I can understand that. I can have compassion on that. And I can put grace around that. So you see how this thing works? Let me tell you something. Grace is amazing, okay? And grace is what you need in your life. And this is why we must step into our grace era. And let me tell you something else. Grace is a mindset, okay? Grace is not just an action. Grace is a mindset. And as you develop this mindset of grace, grace will become a lifestyle. Like, what happens when your default setting is not the critical thinking, but when your default setting is, oof, man, how can I have compassion for you today? Man, that was rough. How can I serve you today? How can I be kind to you today? What is it that you need? How can I forgive myself today? Think about that. It's a lifestyle. It's a mindset. It's something that you got to train your mind to do, to override that critic, that frenemy, and to become so aware and so in step and in tune, with the compassion that you need and the idea that you're doing the best you can. That your automatic default is grace. Like grace just flows out of you. Oh, I love that for us. I love that for us, guys. I love that for us. Okay. Grace is proactive. Okay. Grace is proactive. Like when we give ourselves grace, like I said, when that's our default, when grace is what naturally comes out of us, we're automatically, giving ourselves that self-love. we're automatically giving ourselves that kindness and that compassion and that forgiveness. So it's not something that we're constantly seeking. It's not something that we're constantly looking for. It's not something that we're doing, we don't need that approval. We're not trying to find self-worth. We're not trying to find this value all the time. And we're not looking for other people to give it to us because we are in the habit of giving it to ourselves. So when we receive it from another, it's a gift. So grace is proactive and it's not reactive. Grace causes us to live in the present. Let me tell you something. That critic keeps us in the past. It keeps us ruminating about things in the past or being terrified of what's going to happen in the future. Past or future. Grace, it keeps us centered in the present. And it lets us know that we're okay in this moment right now. Girl, you're okay. Girl, right here, right now. You're going to be fine. You are fine. And you are loved. And you are worthy. And you are valuable. And you are forgiven. And you are okay. And you are safe. And you can breathe. Listen, it's something about being in the present. You can't be in the past, future, and present at the same time. When you are in the present, the past and the future got to take a back seat. That's the gift of grace. That's the gift of grace. Grace encourages growth. Grace encourages growth. And I'm not even going to tell you about this, okay? Grace encourages growth. That right there is so powerful. And I have a little special guest for you that's going to tell you all about grace as it relates to growth. I'm not even going to try because I can't say it as good as she does. I cannot say it as good as she does. So I'm just going to let her do what she do and tell you about grace as it relates to growth.
Hello, GJ Podcast. If this is where I'm reaching everybody, the world, national, giving yourself grace is super, super crucial. And I didn't realize that it is super, super crucial and vital as an actor, as a musical theater student, because I realized that when I don't give myself grace, when I don't shake it off, it actually makes me a worse performer because I live in the past. And the biggest thing that my teachers always give me, and the biggest note in the lesson, is living in the moment. So when you live in the past, you're stunting yourself from growing. So think of giving yourself grace as also giving yourself permission to grow, because none of us is perfect. The only person that's perfect is Jesus Christ. Amen? Amen? But that is we're gonna make mistakes. We're bound to make mistakes. But mistakes are also learning lessons. I don't even think of mistakes as mistakes anymore. I think of them as learning lessons because I'm learning so much. And when I make a mistake, I sit there and I'm like, oh, okay, what did I do wrong? What did I learn from it? And when I take what I learned and I apply it, my God, baby, it is good. I'll have the best performance ever. So think of grace as growth. That's what I got for y'all. I'm in my grace era.
Was that not fantastic? Was that not fantastic? First of all, that's my baby, y'all. That is my baby. I am so beyond proud of her, her growth, her journey. That baby, just like her mama, was an overthinker. She was her worst critic. My baby, to hear the confidence, I told y'all she was growing. She is in her grace era. Yes. And I love it for her. This is what grace looks like. Forgiveness, growth. It's a growth mindset. And you don't fear failure. You don't worry about consequences. You're like, oh, this is an opportunity for growth. Failure, literally, is an opportunity for growth. I think I saw a quote that said, I didn't fail. I just learned 10,000 ways to do it better. Or something like that. I love that quote. I loved it. And let me tell you about this one. You ain't ready for this one. You ain't even ready for this one. Grace. This is so good. Grace reduces burnout. Did you ever think of grace as it relates to the reduction of burnout? Because it's a real thing. You got to think about it. When we are not giving ourselves grace, when that inner critic is in the lead, that inner critic is taking over. And when that inner critic is in control and constantly telling us what we're not doing right, constantly telling us that we need to be perfect, when we're constantly reviewing what we did wrong, what we could have done better, that puts pressure on us. That puts us in that state of fight or flight. That throws all of our biological systems and levels out of whack. And it puts our pressures out of whack. Like nothing biologically is right when we're under this constant stress, anxiety, and pressure that comes from the inner critic. We're not wired to live that way long term. And when we do, things become crazy. And when we're constantly overwhelmed and we're constantly tired, that begins to look like burnout. Then we become irritated. Then our tolerance is low. All of those classic signs of burnout. But it's just because we're like mentally worn out. Like mentally and emotionally, we're tired. Like it's one thing when your soul is tired. Like when your mind is just like, your mind has worn you out. Like when you have worn yourself slam out. Because you at war with yourself day in and day out. And you constantly putting yourself down. You look in the mirror. Anything you do, you look in the mirror. You're not good enough. I'm not pretty enough. I could have done better. I need to lose weight. I'm not drinking enough water. Always something that you're not. That's your homework. If you are that person, I want to love on you for a minute. And I want to challenge you to really understand, first of all, where that comes from, why you do that. I want you to get help because that's a belief. And that's a belief that needs to be broken. And it came from somewhere. But in the meantime, you can at least change what you're saying to yourself. You can definitely change what you're saying to yourself. And one day, you might just look up and believe it. You might just look up and surprise yourself and believe it. Because as you begin to speak over yourself differently, I wholeheartedly believe that your lens will begin to change. And I believe that in time, one day, you'll look up and believe that, hey, I ain't so bad after all. I'm not so bad after all. So it reduces burnout. Because when you're not constantly battling that inner critic, then you have peace. You're not constantly battling and warring with yourself. And you're not constantly, you don't have that anxiety. And you don't have those stress. And you don't have all of the hormones and all the things that are released as a result of stress and anxiety that are unhealthy for you. So you have peace. And so you don't have burnout. You have your zen, and you can just be like, because that's how it's supposed to be. Zen, peace. That's how it's supposed to be. That's what grace will do for you. You know what? I think it's time for another grace moment. Let's hear from my sister and how she gives herself grace.
Hi guys, Ashley Bass Mitchell here. I am a mother, I'm a student, I'm a public speaker, I'm a businesswoman, trainer, I work with youth, I work with adults, I'm constantly out in the community somewhere serving, and I'm also the founder of an organization called Perpetual Butterfly. With wearing so many different hats, it is so essential for me to make sure that I'm offering myself grace and space as I'm navigating my journey. And offering myself grace is not something that comes naturally and easily for me. I constantly want to get it right. I want to make sure that it can be as perfect as possible. I want to make sure that I'm not dropping any balls for myself or for others that I'm serving. And so while I'm doing all those different things, being intentional about offering myself grace and space looks different. At night, I make sure I'm listening to soft ocean sounds to help my brain to settle so that I can calm and put down the things that have happened today and not overthink about what's happening tomorrow. I make sure that I am celebrating the big and small wins, or even just the steps, regardless of how it turned out. I'm making sure that I'm celebrating the steps that it took to get to that point. Additionally, I make sure that I remind myself that as long as I'm giving my best, I can't lose. I'm going to win, grow, and learn from whatever it is that I'm doing. I allow myself to be vulnerable, and when I found myself needing to give space to my emotions, I do that. And if I get to a space where I'm feeling overwhelmed or I kind of get stuck in my head, I also allow myself to be vulnerable and to tap into my accountability partners and my support systems to say, hey, this is what's going on. And they allow them to pour into me. I even do little things. Words of affirmation are my love language, and so I'll order an Amazon package and I'll send it as a gift so I can send myself an affirming note, and it comes in the mail to myself. I am living in my grace era, and I'm making sure that I'm intentional about moving forward so that I can drive and thrive.
Hi everyone, my name is Jessica, and as somebody who has struggled with severe intrusive thoughts and feelings of guilt and shame for years, beating myself up was a regular occurrence. It was normal for me. I didn't learn what grace really was till about 6 years ago with the help of my amazing emotional wellness coach. And as I continue to learn and grow and heal, I still have to remind myself to give myself the same grace that I give to others, especially when the intrusive thoughts start to creep in, telling me that I really messed up. In those moments, I just remind myself that my past does not define me, even if it was just yesterday. I'm still not the woman that I was in that moment. I'm not the same woman, that had that outburst or that reacted that way. And that I did the best that I could with the resources and knowledge that I had at the time. But I know better now, and we can do better from here on out. On the really tough days where it's just eating at me and I'm really struggling, I like to listen to Journal by KCJ, and it reminds me that even in my messiest moments where I just feel like I'm done and I can't come back from it, KCJ reminds me that even in those moments, especially in those moments, that I am still valuable and loved. I might have to cry it out for a minute, and my face might look a little puffy in the morning, but I'll definitely feel a lot better. So that's kind of what I do in those moments where I need to give myself grace and remind myself that I'm okay, and it's okay to make mistakes, and we're gonna learn and we're gonna grow from this. I'm in my grace era, and I'm really grateful that I made it here.
Absolutely fantastic, man. The wisdom that is coming through. I love it. I love it. I love it. And yet here, our line. If she can do it, I can do it. Grace also connects us to our deepest self, and it reminds us of our humanity, right? It gives us permission to be human. It gives us permission to be human, and it gives us permission or encourages us to embrace authenticity, right? Because when we give ourselves grace, kindness, compassion, forgiveness, when grace is our default, then it's like, oh, I can be me, right? I don't have to be anybody else because I'm okay with me. So it fosters that self-love and it fosters that self-growth as you continue to have grace. And it's a beautiful thing because now you are in connection with your deepest self and you're not constantly in fear of failure or making a mistake or being criticized or being rejected. Because you are like, you know what? I can have compassion on myself. It's not just about being compassionate, forgiving, and kind to others. I can do this for myself as well. And as you realize that, I'm going to tell you what's powerful about that because all of us didn't have kind, compassionate, or forgiving parents. And we faced some pretty horrible consequences when we made mistakes. But when we learn the rhythm of grace, and grace becomes our natural lifestyle, our default setting, our mindset, we're actually learning to reparent ourselves. It's so powerful. We're learning to reparent ourselves because that inner critic is usually mommy's voice or dad's voice or grandma or whoever that authoritarian was. It sounds like yours, but it's really theirs. Or it could sound like theirs. Every story is unique. But at the same time, when you get in that rhythm of grace, when you get in that pattern of grace, I tell you, it's freeing, it's liberating, it's life-changing. And you can learn to parent yourself and tell yourself that it's okay and that you're okay. And you can self-soothe on another level. And you can calm yourself on another level. And you can begin to believe that failure isn't the end of the world, but failure is actually an opportunity to grow. And you learn not to fear failure. And you learn and you begin to look for and find and see the beauty in life because you're present. You're not trying to correct the past or be afraid of the future. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. So listen, I don't even want you to, I have given you an example of grace. So many examples of grace. How I've given myself grace. How I even walked you through giving grace to my mommy dearest. I love you, mommy. That was a tribute to you. I love my mommy. That was a tribute to her. And so I hope that you learn from that. I hope that was a great moment that you can glean from. And I hope that's something that you can take and apply, because it's freeing when you can kind of shift your lens and view some really tough stuff in that way like I did. So I hope me walking through that example was impactful for you, because it really kind of set me free a little bit. It really was me. It was almost like the Gestalt therapy. It was almost like a little bit of chair work right there, or writing a letter that we do in grief recovery. So I just kind of, it's powerful stuff. It's powerful stuff. But listen, I don't want you to take my word for it, okay? I want you to know that grace is available to you. Grace is attainable, okay? I have got some sisters that are in their grace era. This is our sisterhood, okay? This is our tribe. And we have decided that we are in our grace era, and they have come together to let you know how they give themselves grace. It's okay, sis, if you're not in a place where you can give yourself grace right now. I got sisters from all over, from all walks of life, telling you that this is how they do it. And some of them say straight up, it's not easy for me to do, but this is what I try to do. And this is what I do. And this is how I overcome. Let me tell you something. Those testimonies are strong. Okay, so we're going to have a little bit of a testimony service, because I'm an old Baptist girl. I was raised Baptist. I'm non-denominational now, because listen. But them testimonies were powerful. Like, I don't, again, it's back to those humble beginnings, and all of those traditions were not bad. And I tell you, hearing those testimonies can be life-changing, and it can give you hope for your future, and it can let you know what's possible, and it can let you know that you are not alone. I am a huge proponent of, if you were to hear everybody else's story, all you would be able to say, me too. Oh my gosh. I love women sharing their stories. I love women being honest and vulnerable, because it lets another woman know that it's not just you. It validates another woman, and it'll tell you that it's not just you, that you are not alone, and that you can overcome, because if she can do it, you can do it. No respect of person around here. So I pray that these stories, these testimonies, these brave women that have showed up and done these videos and let us know that you can, how they give themselves grace. I pray that it encourages you, that it inspires you, and that I pray that it motivates you to say, you know what, tomorrow, I'm going to give grace a try. Tomorrow, today, in this next moment, I'm walking in my grace era. Like, let me know. Put it in the comments. Like, anywhere you see me on social media. Matter of fact, post a picture and say, I'm in my grace era, and tag me. Like, hashtag, I'm in my grace era. Because this is what we're doing. WLG, grace era. With love, Gwen. Grace era. Whatever you want to do. We're in our grace era. This is a movement. We are going to let women all over the world know that, sis, grace is for you. Grace is your portion, okay? This lifestyle, this rhythm of grace is what we all need. Enjoy these moments from our sisters. Thank you to all these courageous, brave souls that sent these videos in to encourage another.
How I receive or give myself grace. starts with remembering how deeply loved I am. God knows me intimately, the good, the bad, the ugly, and he knew that, yeah, she's gonna need some help. She's definitely gonna need some grace. And then he provided this generous gift. So the more I rest in his love, the more I receive the gift of grace, I understand that I don't have to be it all. I don't have to do it all. I don't have to know it all. I have nothing to prove. And that is so freeing. So yes, I am definitely in my grace era.
When we hear self-grace, we often jump to the actual self aspect. For example, for me, I love to sit down in my room, listen to music, paint or draw. Sometimes I like to be outside, just sit down and relax. And while that is wonderful, and I love my me time, I feel like we often jump the fact that it doesn't always have to be alone. And so I found that within myself, I love to be with my friends, I love to be with my family, just sitting down, having a good time, or going out and having fun. And even if it's just relaxing and we can be in each other's comfortable silence, I found that that company is really helpful for me. And so while I love the time that I have for myself, it took me a long time to realize that while self-grace isn't only optional, but it also doesn't have to be individualized. And I feel like finding the balance between both is how I've gotten to where I am right now, and why I'm in a space where I feel just light, beautiful. And I would definitely say in the time that I am right now, I'm definitely in my grace era.
This is how I give myself grace. So I try to create a little acronym for grace, and the first one is give yourself permission to make mistakes. I am one of my worst critics, like most women, and sometimes it's hard for me to give myself permission to make mistakes. But then once I do, I have to release the need for perfection. In addition to that, affirming your worth regardless of your flaws. Then you have to choose compassion over criticism. And last but not least, embrace growth through every challenge. I'm in my grace era.
How do I give myself grace? Sometimes that is one of the hardest things that you can do, especially when you're in challenging moments. So in the moment, I try to look at opportunities that can allow me to learn, to grow, to feel empowered, and to perfect my character. And so those challenging moments no longer are challenging, but I turn them into wonderful grace opportunities. So that becomes my aha moment of grace.
I love you. Make sure you are subscribed. When you subscribe, you'll get personal letters from me and so much more. Like the freebies, the giveaways are coming. So you have got to go to my website, GwendolynJJones.com, and get on my mailing list now. And because I'm telling you, season 2 is going to be phenomenal. Even throughout season 2, I'm still going to be posting some encouraging and inspiring messages, but I've got some big things coming your way. You don't want to miss out. Those on my mailing list are going to be the first ones to hear about it. So sign up. You're going to be the first ones to know when season 2 is coming, when it's going to be released. So come on, tribe. Get into the tribe. Get into the sisterhood. Get into it. I want you to know first. I want to share with you first. And I'll still keep writing my letters to you, even though we're closing out this podcast. So we're in our grace era. I love this for us. I love you all. Thank you for rocking with me through season 1. I will be back in January for season 2. With love, Gwen, from my heart to yours. Bye. Gwen, what are you doing? I'm out here doing the most because I want you to see my shirt. And you couldn't see it before. So here we go. It is okay. You know what? I'm going to just stand up. I'm going to be cut off for a while. But it is okay to make mistakes, to not be okay, to have hard days, to be yourself. not to know it all, to ask for help, to start over, to need more time. It is okay. This is grace. Letting yourself know that it's okay. Because it absolutely is. It absolutely is. Be in your grace era. Grace says, I can rest. Grace says, I'm okay. Grace says, this is okay. And it's going to be okay. Grace says, give myself a break. You're in your grace era.